the case.
Right. Has the U.S. revoked Madam Hasina's visa? Is she applying for asylum? And did she apply for asylum there? I mean, your conversations with her when she was getting onto that chopper, or when she didn't want to get on and you forced her, did you ask her to come here to the U.S.? So what's the status of her visa?
No, no one has revoked her visa. She has not applied for political asylum anywhere. Those are all rumors.
Okay, they're all rumors. You can confirm that.
Right.
Okay. Now,
my personal gratitude to Prime Minister Modi for his government's quick action in saving my mother's life. I am eternally grateful to. That India needs to take a leadership role in the world and not let other foreign powers dictate the situation, because this is India's neighborhood. This is India's eastern side.
What is your message to the government of India? And what are your expectations? As being Bangladesh's strongest supporter in the region.
My message to the government of India, first of all, is my personal gratitude to Prime Minister Modi for his government's quick action in saving my mother's life. I am eternally grateful to. My second message is that India needs to take a leadership role in the world, not let other foreign powers dictate the situation, because this is India's neighborhood. This is India's eastern side. It is a proven track record that no one can deny that the Awami League government, Sheikh Hasina's government, kept peace in Bangladesh, kept economic growth, stopped insurgency, and kept the eastern side of our subcontinent stable. And we are the only government that has proven we can do it. No one else has. Other governments have tried, they have failed. So if you want stability and security, your best bet is the Awami League. Now, obviously, you cannot directly support a party, but what you can do is support and demand democracy, which is, and a constitutional democracy, which is elections within 90 days. If elections are held within 90 days, I am confident that the Awami League will still win. And that is the only thing that will ensure stability in Bangladesh, security, and protection of the minorities. That is the only thing that will ensure it.
What can you tell us something about that conversation, between a mother and a son, at a situation which had turned so hostile?
The conversation was brief. What I told her is, no, you cannot stay. She said, no, I'm not leaving my country. I said, look, this is a mob now. These aren't protesters. They are armed. They've already been killing police. They've been attacking police with firearms. So at this point, if they find you, they're going to kill you, and we do not want that. If you don't want your security forces, if you don't want your special security force to defend you and shoot back, then they're going to kill you. You have to leave the country. We have to keep you safe.
Over this whole week, many see a U.S. hand behind this coup, as your mother had a troubled relationship with the U.S. of sorts in the past few years. Now, even the Russians said that the United States used its resources to overthrow your mother's administration. I'd like to get your perspective. What is your sense of this whole situation and where the U.S. stands in this whole plot?
Well, I mean, was the U.S. directly involved? I don't know. I have no evidence. But if you look at the situation, the protests, the protests were incited and inflamed every step of the way. When the protests first started, they were peaceful. Our police were guarding them. And the protest wasn't against the government action. Our government had reduced quotas years ago, when there were the first round of protests against quotas. The quotas were reinstated by the courts due to a case. And our government had filed an appeal against that. That means our government was fighting the quotas, and it was going to fight the quotas in the Supreme Court. We were just waiting for the Supreme Court to hear it. And then, at that point, someone took a statement of my mother and twisted it online and spread it tremendously online, which is, she had said that we don't want families of Rajakars getting government jobs. Now they twisted that into my mother calling the protesters Rajakars, which she never did. So clearly some agency was very, very active online in using social media to inflame the situation. Then, on the night of July 15th, when our government had appealed to the Supreme Court, when our government had announced that we want the quotas to be rescinded, then someone started marching at Dhaka University in the middle of the night chanting, "We are Rajakar, we are Rajakar." To understand that would be of someone marching in Jerusalem in the middle of the night chanting, "We are Nazis, we are Nazis." This inflamed our student activists. Our student activists attacked the protesters. The police stepped in to try to stop the violence. Some police members used excessive force. Our government immediately told our student activists, our Bangladesh Chhatra League, to back down, not to fight, and the violence was stopped. We formed a judicial commission, a 3-member judicial commission to investigate the deaths, and we suspended all the police officers that used excessive force. So our government did everything to quell the violence. The violence was never ordered by our government. The violence was instigated by some unknown party, specifically in the middle of the night, chanting, "We are Rajakar, we are Rajakar." This was done deliberately. And then, that didn't stop there. Then the protesters started attacking the police, and they didn't just attack, they were armed with firearms. Now, where did these protesters get firearms? You can only a foreign intelligence service can supply firearms in a country.
So you're trying to say it is an outside intelligence agency that has instigated this or supported this?
I am that it has instigated it and supported it. I am convinced. Yes.
So you don't have evidence that the U.S. did it, but you definitely think that it is something from the Western side.
Well, I don't know if it's the Western side, but if you look who these protesters have selected, Dr. Yunus, he's a darling of the West. They've been championing him. They've been trying to get him into politics for decades now. So. Who else? I mean, the West, and they were the first to congratulate his government and support it. So I think they're making it quite obvious that they probably had some involvement in this whole matter.
Right. So now, your mother publicly did.
When initial reactions from your end came, it was regarding that do not want to go back to Bangladesh. But then again, you said that she wants to go back. But will she return to politics again? That would be my question to you. Will Madam make the comeback?
That I cannot answer. That you will have to ask her. It's. My family, none of us had ever had sort of a greed for power or politics. Other than my mother, the rest of my family has been settled abroad. I myself have been settled in the U.S. for almost 30 years. But we want to work for our country. We cannot sit and watch this happen to our country. So to restore democracy, to restore law and order, to keep the people of our country safe, whatever is required, we will all do.
Thank you from your answer itself. Madam Hasina wanted to give a statement as well before she left from her residence, as we have heard. What was the message, sir, if you could share it?
She was going to announce her resignation and announce a constitutional transition of power, which would be Parliament holding new elections. No plans to leave her residence at all. She did not. That was completely. In fact, the reason this happened was this was completely unplanned. She was going to just resign. She did not wish to leave Bangladesh. Even when they took her to the helicopter, she did not want to leave Bangladesh. She told my aunt, "You get on the helicopter. I'm going to stay here." My aunt called me. I got on the phone. I convinced my mother to leave. That if they catch you, they will kill you. We can't have that. So that is why she was planning to just resign and hand over power.
Because today itself, the Nobel Peace Prize winner Mohammad Yunus has sworn in into the office as the Bangladesh interim leader. he says that they'll try to restore the democracy. What would be your take? Because you have seen the challenges which the country was going through. What would be your take on that, sir?
Look. We all want a quick restoration of democracy. Of course, that is what we want. Right now we are in a completely unconstitutional situation. This government is completely unconstitutional. There is no provision for a selected government selected by a small minority, because even the demonstrators, what you're seeing, we have 170 million people in Bangladesh. 20,000, 50,000 protesters are a tiny fraction of the minority. No one has voted for this government. And so whether they can restore law and order, well, it remains to be seen. They've only been in power for less than 24 hours. However, I doubt it. It's one thing to take over power in a coup. It's another thing to govern. They don't have the people's mandate. Who is going to listen to them? Right now, there are two main political parties in Bangladesh. No matter what you do, if you have democracy, with 170 million people between the BNP and our party, we have 100 million followers. They have not voted. They have not asked for. They have not supported this government. So without their support, how are you going to govern? And so I wait to see who is going to listen to this government. How are they going to? It's one thing to be placed in power. It's another thing to have people following you. And we shall see. That remains to be seen. But so far, in 12 hours, they're already starting to make mistakes. They've already announced that elections are not a priority. The priority is to have trials of the previous government to reform the country. Well, who gave them the mandate to reform the country? No one has given them the mandate. But the people of Bangladesh, they don't have the mandate of the people of Bangladesh. So who is going to support them? Who is going to follow their orders? We shall see.
Many countries, including India, the Prime Minister Modi also, when he spoke to Mohammad Yunus, he did mention about to save Hindus as well, which are being attacked there in Bangladesh. Your views on that, sir?
That is inevitable. There, in the history of Bangladesh, there has been one government, and one government only, that has proven itself to keep the minorities of Bangladesh safe and keep Bangladesh safe from all militancy and violence. That was Sheikh Hasina. That was the Awami League. This is proven record in history. No one can argue that. So the last 15 years were the safest period in Bangladesh's history for minorities, for Bangladesh itself, and it was also the period of the highest economic development and growth. Even those who are criticizing Sheikh Hasina cannot deny it. So right now, is this non-elected government that does not have the support of almost the entire population of Bangladesh, that has no popular mandate, are they going to be able to keep the minority safe? You're already seeing the results. The minorities are trying to flee the country. I am worried about them. From the Awami League, I want to do what I can to keep the minorities safe, to restore law and order to Bangladesh, to bring back democracy. That is our goal.
So you must have...
Now, your mother publicly did talk about like foreign involvement in the past in Bangladesh. Did she privately discuss with you about, foreign elements wanting to probably carve out a Christian state or, suppress the minorities there?
No, that has not been the discussion at all. We're more concerned about the immediate situation. I don't think it's to carve out a minority state. I don't think that is something that we've ever thought was the goal in Bangladesh. I've always said that they have tried, especially the U.S. has always wanted a weak government that they can control, and that has always been the case.
Right. Has the U.S. revoked Madam Hasina's visa? Is she applying for asylum? Did she apply for asylum there? I mean, your conversations with her when she was getting onto that chopper, or when she didn't want to get on and you forced her, did you ask her to come here to the U.S.? So what's the status of her visa?
No, no one has revoked her visa. She has not applied for political asylum anywhere. Those are all rumors.
Okay, they're all rumors. You can confirm that.
Right.
Okay. Now, did she have any intel about the coup from elsewhere, or her supporters within your intelligence agencies? And at what point do you think that she misread the street protest? Did she misread it, or you think that she just didn't want to open up?
No, I don't think she misread it. The problem was what we didn't expect was someone constantly inciting the protest. That we did whatever we could to. We met all the protesters' demands. Our government met all the protesters' demands. Tried to stop the violence immediately when it started, but clearly somebody kept inciting it, and that was something that was unexpected. And especially the protesters. The protesters being with firearms was the most shocking thing. That was completely unexpected.
Right.
And
now,
here
India has.
I'm looking at the Bangladeshi newspaper. Well, 232 people at least. The newspapers are reporting at least 232 have been killed since my mother left the country. So that is after. More people have died since she left the country than in the first days of the protests.
Mm-hmm. Now, India has been a strong partner of Bangladesh historically. We've witnessed that, over the years, and the last decade has been really strong. Was Madam Hasina warned by the Indian government about the coup attempt?
I don't know. I really don't know about that. I wasn't part of those conversations, so I cannot comment.
All right. Now that the interim government is in place, and we've seen the U.S. Welcoming Eunice's, government, interim government, what are your views on this government and the caretaker of this government?
I mean, actually, in a way, I welcome it because these people have been championed by the minority, by the elite, and by the West. I personally believe, having seen the functioning of government and having served as a government, as an honorary advisor to the government, that it is one thing to be appointed to handpick and to be handpicked and appointed to a position. It's a whole other thing to govern, and without political experience, without governance experience, it is very, very difficult to run a country. So I'm actually curious to see how they perform, whether they are even capable of running the country. However, the point is that our Supreme Court has ruled, and our Constitution says that a non-elected government cannot run a country, even for 1 minute. Right now, this is an unconstitutional government. They are not elected. So there is no democracy in Bangladesh. So they are talking about democracy, but there is no democracy. So what do you have to do if you want to have democracy? You have to have elections. And our Constitution is very clear on this provision that from the day Parliament is dissolved, new elections have to be held within 90 days. There is no way around it. There is no such thing as an interim government in the Constitution which can stay in power beyond 90 days. That does not exist. So I believe that this government's priority should be to hold elections as soon as possible. And definitely it has to be held within 90 days.
Right. Sorry to interrupt you there. Now that we're talking about
elections, if I may ask you, why the situation which boiled down to resignation of Sheikh Hasina ma'am, what prompted this situation? Why do you think it happened the way it happened? Because the tussle which we saw, the carnage which we saw, it was all evident. The visuals which we all saw. So what's your take on that, and why it happened according to you?
I now firmly believe this was instigated by a small group and most likely by a foreign intelligence agency. I strongly suspect ISI. If you'll notice that the protests really did not, there was no reason for the protests in the first place to continue, because the quotas were not mandated by our government. The quotas were restored by the courts, by a court ruling. Our government had lifted the quotas many years ago, in 2018 or so, when the first quota protests happened. So at first when the protests started, the protests were peaceful. Our police was providing security for the protesters, keeping them safe. And then they took a statement of my mother's where she said that we don't want Rajakar's families getting jobs. They took that statement and twisted it, saying that my mother said that the protesters are Rajakars. My mother never said that, but this was spread online. And then, in the middle of the night, you had some group, nobody knows who did that, marching through Dhaka University chanting, "We are Rajakar, we are Rajakar." Now, if you have a group marching through Jerusalem in the middle of the night chanting, "We are Nazis, we are Nazis," that is the equivalent. What would be the result? The result would be that the people of Jerusalem would get angry and start attacking those who they think said this. And that is what happened. The other students, especially Chhatraleague, our student supporters, the pro-liberation students, they got angry, they attacked the protesters, and that is how the violence started. The police tried to stop the violence, and in doing so, some of the police members used live ammunition, which they were not authorized to do. Our government never ordered anyone to attack. Our government never ordered the police to use live ammunition. We immediately called our student leaders and said, "Stop the fighting." The fighting stopped. We immediately suspended the police officers that used excessive force. But even then, that wasn't enough. After that, they increased the demand to resignation of the government. And once they did that, they started attacking the police. Now, they were attacking the police with firearms, with weapons. Where did these weapons come from? Where did these weapons come into Bangladesh from? How did the students get weapons? So these weren't students. This was a mob, this was a militancy that was instigated to try to overthrow a democratically elected government. That is what happened. My mother left because her security forces, the Prime Minister's security forces, the Special Security Force, the Prime Minister's guards, they were heavily armed, they were prepared to guard the Prime Minister's residence, Gol. But if the protesters had marched on Gol, hundreds, if not thousands of them would have been killed. It would have been a massacre. And my mother did not want a massacre. That is why she left.
Okay. My first and foremost question is related to the present state of Bangladesh. Your views, how do you look at the situation right now as we speak, sir?
Right now, the situation is very bad. There is no law and order. Minorities are being attacked. It's the citizens themselves that are now have taken over to try to ensure law and order and providing security. Our Awami League, we have asked our Awami League members, especially the youth, to guard our own leaders, to try to guard the minorities. But of course, throughout the country, it's not possible throughout the country. The law enforcement agencies have quit. There is no police in Bangladesh right now. There is no one enforcing law and order in Bangladesh right now.